day 2 of section 8.5. If you haven't done day 1, go back, because otherwise this won't make a whole lot of sense. Factor the trinomial. Same instructions. It's still a trinomial. We're still factoring it, breaking it into its 2 binomials. But this is different. Every time we did it before, it just had an x squared in front of it. 2x squared plus 6x minus 36. Write that down. It's combining what you learned in section 8.4 and section 8.5. We do this so many times to you in math, where it's like, hey, do this. Now do this. Now put those 2 things together and do it again. So this trinomial has a greatest common factor. We usually did greatest common factor with just 2 terms, but this one has 3. What do 2, 6, and 36 all have in common as a factor? Their greatest common factor is 2. And then you can look at the x's. This one has 2, this one has 1, but this one doesn't have any. So that's not a greatest common factor. If you don't have any x's, you don't have a greatest common factor. So only the 2 becomes the greatest common factor. So what do we do with that 2? We write it out in front, just like we did with all of our other greatest common factors, and you divide each term by 2, which shortens this up into x squared plus 3x minus 18. Each one of those got divided by 2. Now this part looks just like what we did in 8.5 day 1. But I wanted you to practice this. I didn't want you to do it all in one day. So you can make a chart and say, I need 2 numbers that multiply to make negative 18. Back here they have to multiply to make negative 18. But when you add them together, it's going to equal a positive 3. And your fraction or your factors will look like this, except you got to have that 2 with it. Without that 2, the whole thing is going to be wrong. So there's your 2 with it. We need 2 factors that when you multiply them, they make negative 18, but when you add them, they equal a positive. Therefore, the bigger numbers have to be positive. So you can try negative 1 and 18, but that adds up to 15. You can try negative 2 and 9, which multiplies to make negative 18, but that adds up to 7. You can try negative 3 times 6. Negative times a positive is a negative, and negative 3 plus 6 is positive 3. So there are your 2 factors. Fill it in, break your x squared up into x times x, and your 2 factors into plus 6 minus 3, or minus 3 plus 6, doesn't matter. The only thing that really matters in this one is the 2 has to be out in front. We always put the greatest common factor first, and then you could have x minus 3, x plus 6, or x plus 6, x minus 3. As long as you make sure that negative sticks with the 3. Let's try it again. Go ahead and write this one down. We just have a few today for your notes. 3x squared minus 6x minus 72. Write it down. Find the greatest common factor. The only thing it could possibly be is 3, so you have to check and see if 3 is a factor of 6 and 72, which it is. So I'm going to take the 3 here. If you divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3, you get x squared minus 2x minus 24. This one is a little tougher. We haven't done one yet with 24, but 24 has a lot of factors to it. There's lots of numbers that multiply to make 24. And in this case, you need a negative 24. 2 numbers that multiply to make negative 24, but when you add them up, it has to equal a negative 2. So all your little numbers, low numbers will be positive. All your big numbers will be negative, so that this works out. So you could try 1 and negative 24. That adds up to negative 23. Nope. You could try 2. Notice I always just go down the line. 2 and negative 12. If you add those together, it equals negative 10. We're getting closer. 3 times negative 8. 3 plus negative 8 is negative 5. They're getting smaller. 4, notice 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all factors of negative 24. 4 times negative 6, and if you add 4 plus negative 6. There's your negative 2 that you're looking for. So my two factors are going to be x plus 4 and x minus 6. And don't forget, of course, you got to have that 3 up there as a greatest common factor. That's it for the new material. We'll try this one just so that you see it. Here's what do you do if this happens? We try it. It doesn't have a greatest common factor because there's only a 1 there, an 8 and a 33. They don't all have W's. So you try to make a chart of two numbers that add to make 8 but multiply to make 33. The only things that go into 33 for factors are 1 times 33, which adds up to 34, and 3 times 11, which adds up to 14. I don't have any other whole numbers that work. Answer to this one. I know you always get different words every time. We can't say it's undefined because that means you divided by 0. We can't say it's not real because that means you took the square root of a negative. We don't say no solution because this is a solution. It's just that it's not factorable. So if they say factor this, you say I can't. It's not factorable. And that's just your answer. All right, your assignment today is going to have some of the new stuff and some of the old stuff. Just a quick review. When it says factor out the greatest common monomial, we are not breaking it into two binomials because this isn't a trinomial. We have this term and this term. We find its greatest common factor. If you can't remember how to find its greatest common factor, you break that down, make a tree, go as far as you can. 40 breaks into 4 times 10, 2 times 5. This can break down into 2 and 2. Go find all of the common factors. You've got a 2 here and a 2 here. There's 1. You got a 2 here and a 2 here. There's 2. You got a 2 here and a 2 here. That's 3. And then that's it. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So your greatest common factor is 8. You could do the same thing with the A's and the B's. This has 2 A's. This has a B. Nothing in common there. So your only greatest common factor is 8. Some of you that know your multiplication tables much better, you know that 8 goes into 16 and into 40. Now you divide them, each by 8, divide by 8, divide by 8. You get 2a squared minus 5b. 2a squared minus 5b. You have to have the 8 out in front. You don't just get rid of it. Let's try it with 9xy squared plus 6x squared y. Try that. Greatest common factor. What do 9 and 6 have for a common factor? 3. And then if you remember, when they do have x's in common, you always have to take the least amount of x's. That only has 1, and that has 2. So you have 1x in common. Same thing with the y's. This one has 2, and that one has 1. Always take the smallest exponent number of them. So 3xy is your greatest common factor. You divide by 3xy, divide by 3xy. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Quotient rule, x divided by x, or subtract exponents, you get x to the 0, which means there are no x's left. Quotient rule, y to the second divided by y to the first. 2 minus 1 is 1, but you, of course, will not put a 1 there. Plus 6 divided by 3 is 2. X squared divided by x is x, and you won't have any y's left. So all of this is your final answer, not just the parentheses. You need greatest common factor times answer. Just a friendly review, remind you of what a greatest common factor is because you have some of that on your assignment as well. This is a combination of we found a greatest common factor and we factored it. So that's what you're working on. Good luck with both of those.